Begin the discussion on the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita, which essentially deals with transmigration and the means by which one can attain God at the time of transmigration. In the Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna declares that you are part of his superior energy. It all begins in 14th chapter, 3rd verse. Mama yonir mahad brahma tasmin garbham dadamyaham sambhava sarva bhutanam tato bhavati bharata. So Krishna explains that the Mahat, unfortunately translated in various Bhagavad Gitas as Brahman, it is not Brahman. It is of course Brahman, but Brahman is differentiated into Purush and Prakriti. The Supreme Purush is the representative of God. And Prakriti, while also being divine, is called Mahat. So Krishna explains that as Purush, he impregnates the totality of Prakriti, which is called Mahat. And by impregnating Prakriti, he makes possible the birth of all living beings. And having said that, Krishna explains Sarva Yonishu Kaunteya 14.4 Murtaya Sambhavantiyaha Tasham Brahma Mahadyonir Aham Bija Pradapitah. So Krishna explains that of all forms of life, they are given birth in this material nature by me, and I am the seed-giving father. So there is a Supreme Purush, and that Supreme Purush impregnates the Mahat, or the totality of Prakriti. And this Purush plus Prakriti makes us what we are today. And Krishna explains further earlier in the Bhagavad Gita that Bhumi apo nalo vayur kham mano buddhirevacha ahankara itya me bhinna prakriti ashtadha. That earth, water, fire, air, ether, your mind, your intelligence, and the illusion of ego, all these are part of Krishna's inferior energies, which are part of Prakriti. Aparyamitastvanyam prakritim vidhi me param jiva bhuta mahabhao yayedam dharyate jagat. And Krishna points out that you are not that Prakriti. You are part of me. And being part of me, Krishna explains, you are sustaining and maintaining creation. But what part of him? That Krishna explains very clearly. Mamai vamso jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana mana shasta indriyani prakriti sthani karshati. You are but a fragment of me, an infinitesimal fragment of me, which is why you struggle with the parts of your prakriti, which include your mind and your five senses. Having understood that, you should know that as Purush, you are indestructible. Avinashi tu tad vidhi yena sarvam idam tatam. That which pervades your body, that is indestructible. Therefore, death is impossible. You are beyond death. But what happens at what common people call death? What happens is that the soul leaves the body. And you will see in the Bhagavad-Gita again, that is explained by Krishna. He says in the Bhagavad-Gita, Vasanshi jirnanya yatha vihai navani grinati naro parani tatha sharirani vihai jirnanya anyani samyati navani dehi. So just like you may cast off your worn out clothes and put on fresh ones, so also at the time of death, you cast off your body and you take on a fresh new body. And how does that happen? That Krishna also explains in the Bhagavad-Gita. He says, Shariram yad avapnoti yad chapya utkramati ishvara grihitvaitani samyati vayur gandhani va ashayat. So Krishna explains that, from infancy to childhood to youth to maturity to old age, you are changing your body. Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yavanam jara tatha dehantara prapte dhiras tatranam. And indeed, as you keep changing bodies, every 7 years, every cell in your body is changed. In every year, every single molecule is changed, as proved by radioisotope labeling. So you are changing your body all the time, from infancy to childhood to youth to maturity to old age. And finally, at the time of death, you change your body once again. And you change your body just like someone changes their clothes. You will cast off your worn out body, no longer useful for fulfilling your desires, and you will put on a fresh new body. Because indeed, you are indestructible. So Krishna explains in the Bhagavad-Gita that Shariram yad avapnoti yad chapya utkramati ishvara grihitvaitani samyati vayur gandhan iva ashayet. So Krishna is explaining to Arjun in this 8th chapter, in the 15th chapter, 8th verse, that you leave your body because this body is Prakriti and you are Purush. You leave this body and you move on to the next body, carrying with it your impressions of the previous life. What impressions? Your bundle of unfulfilled desires, your vasanas, your bundle of karmas. All these are carried from one gross body to the next gross body. Just like the breeze carries the fragrance of a flower. The soul, of course, has no connection with the Prakriti in an absolute sense. But just like the breeze carries the fragrance of a flower, the soul carries the impressions of the previous life, which is your subtle body, which is your mind, intelligence, ego in a inchoate form, from one body to the next. And that body which you acquire is the result of both your unfulfilled desires or vasanas, as also it is the result of whatever karmas you have acquired or earned during the current life which you are living. And it enters into the womb, and in 15.9, Krishna explains, Shrotram chakshu sparshanam cha rasanam granam eva cha adhishtaya manaschayam vishayan upasevate. Thus, the soul takes another gross body, carrying with it the subtle body, or the mind, intelligence, and illusion of ego. And it obtains a certain type of ear, nose, tongue, sense of touch, All of these are grouped around the subtle body. And thus, in that gross body, this subtle body enjoys a particular set of sense delights. Now, how all this takes place cannot be understood by ordinary people. If you are foolish, if you are spiritually uneducated, you cannot understand this. And therefore you weep. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge, who is Jnana Chakshu, he will understand this. So in 15.10, Krishna explains, Utkramantam sthitam vapi bhunjanam va gunanvitam. Vimudo nanu pashyanti jnana chakshusha. The foolish living beings cannot understand how one can quit the body, nor can they understand what kind of body enjoys under Prakriti. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge, one who has understood the Bhagavad-Gita, he can see all of this. So having understood this, that you are moving from one body to the next, to the next, to the next, also understand that if in this life your subtle body has been changed by keeping the wrong company, by kusang, rather than by satsang, and not only is it been altered by kusang, but you have in fact entrenched those negativities deep within you by indulging in activities that were not really to be indulged in. So if you become morally degenerate, if you abuse your body, then Krishna says, Asurim yonim apanam mudho janmani janmari. So those who behave like asuras, those who do not take the guidance of scripture, those who do not live their lives according to dharma, they enter into wombs of other asuric women or mothers. And these asuric mothers give you an asuric body to live out your next line. So you go down in a downward spiral. But if you have lived a sattvic life, you keep moving upwards. Urdhva gachanti sattvasto, madhye tistanti bharata. So what happens is that if you move upwards, you will move into a higher opportunities for spiritual realization. And indeed, if you have been desirous of attaining the Lord, then you will get such an opportunity. Because of course, as Krishna says, Nahi kalyana krit kaschid durgatim tata gacchati. So those who are trying to do good, they never meet with evil, can overcome evil. Now, in this 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna clarifies certain names or certain ideas. What is Adi Daivam? What is Adi Yagna? What is so on and so forth? All this will be discussed. And eventually he will go on to explain that if you want to escape this repeated cycle of transmigration, make it one permanent transmigration back to God. And to make this one simple transmigration back to God, he explains the techniques and methods that have been described earlier in the Chandogya Upanishad, and also what Krishna personally recommends, because he is giving us a simplification of everything. So he gives us a method which is a simple method for his devotees. So, in the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna also explains the process of creation and destruction, how this universe is created, how this material universe is created, how it gets destroyed. In the day of Brahma, it is created. In the day of Brahma, in night of Brahma, it is destroyed. And all this will be explained as we go on discussing this chapter 8. But the real essence of the message of chapter 8 is, how can I attain Godhead? How can I go back to Krishna? And how can I transcend this repeated cycle of birth and death? You see, in India, we have many, many religions. Hinduism is not a religion. It is a commonwealth of religions which have taken birth on this subcontinent. But even though there are other religions, non-Vedic religions, like say Jainism, which doesn't believe in God, or Buddhism, which does not believe in God or the soul, you will find that all of them believe in reincarnation. Because reincarnation is transmigration. It is the movement of the subtle body from one gross body to the next. Krishna explains that the soul accompanies it. The fragmented Purush accompanies it from one body to the next. But even those who don't believe in soul, even they admit that there is a movement from one body to the next. So while Buddhism does not believe in God or the soul, they seek a reincarnated Dalai Lama. They seek a child who has been born carrying the subtle impressions of the previous Dalai Lama. So in this section of the Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna deals with an important question. What should I do when transmigration comes upon me? What shall I do when I am leaving this gross body? How do I manage to escape this cycle of birth and death? The answer is really very simple. The answer is that if you have detached yourself from your Prakriti, if you have become a Sakshi at the conclusion of your life, if indeed you have come to that realization that you are not what you are called by other people, and that you have abandoned your autobiographical self, your sense of self or the sense of ahankar or ego, then you can leave this body and go back to God. And the key to this is that when you leave the body, what holds the subtle body together is the ahankar, that I am this, I am that, I, me, and myself. This is what I want. And this ahankar holds the elements of the subtle body together and forces it to take another gross body. But if the time of death you can remember God and forget self, if at the time of death you can remember Bhagavan and you can surrender your sense of self, then just as earth goes to earth, water goes to water, air goes to air, fire goes to fire, ether goes to ether, at the time of transmigration, you will also let your mind go to the universal mind. You will let your intellect go to the universal intellect. You will then merge with the Mahat, and the Prakriti will merge with the Mahat, and the soul will go back to God. Your ahankar, your sense of self, your autobiographical self, is the glue that holds you to the material manifestation. Because whatever you think you are is nothing but Prakriti. Your earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego, all of these, which are the only things that you know, which you're attached to, will force you to take rebirth. But if you can surrender unto God by remembering God and forgetting self while leaving this body, then you will go back to Him. So, this is the key. The key is remembering God and forgetting oneself. So that if you can remember God and forget yourself at the time of death, you can become free from this transmigration cycle. In the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna is being asked by Arjun. Same thing that was mentioned in the last chapter of the last verse of the 7th chapter. Arjuna Vacha, Kim Tad Brahma, Kim Adhyatmam, Kim Karma Purushottamah, Adhibhutam Cha Kim Proktam, Adhidaivam Kim Uchyate. Adhiyagna Katham Ko Atra Dehesmin Madhusudana, Prayana Kale Cha Katham Gneo Se Gneosi Niyat Atmanabhi. So Krishna is asking, what is Brahman? What is Adhyatma? What is Karma? What is said to be Adi Bhuta? Who is said to be Adi Daiva? Who is Adi Yagna in the body? And how is he Adi Yagya? So Krishna explains, Aksharam Brahma Paramam. Brahman is that indestructible, universal ground of creation. Just like when you have a painting, that painting is on a canvas. That canvas of the painting is the universal ground. So also Krishna explains that this indestructible aspect of this universe, which includes both Purush and Prakriti, is called Brahman. I would like to remind you here that Krishna explains in the Bhagavad-Gita that he is the source, he is the rest, he is the foundation of Brahman. Brahmano hi pratishtaham amritasya vyayasya cha. So Krishna is the source of Brahman. Brahman is the universal ground of creation that includes the Supreme Purush and Prakriti. Swabhavo adhyatmam uchyate. So Krishna says, your whatever lies within you, that is called adhyatma. That's right. So according to the context, adhyatma can mean your inner nature of your Prakriti, which cannot be changed, which is part of your subtle body. For example, your subtle body has got certain proclivities. It has certain penchants. It has got certain desires which are inarticulate, inchoate. And these are all part of the Prakriti that lies inside of you. And that which lies inside of you is called Adhyatma. So that which brings peace to what lies inside of you is indeed known as Adhyatmic. So inside of you, there is the soul, there is the subtle body, there is Bhagavan. All of this is included in Adhyatma. But essentially, when he's saying that which lies within you is Adhyatma, he's talking about the subtle nature of your Prakriti. And consequently, the next line explains this by saying that Bhut bhava udbhava karo, Bhut bhava udbhava karo, Visarga karma samgnitah. That all actions pertaining to the material personality of living beings and its development are called karma or fruitive activities. So all that develops, all that expands your material life, all that has an impact on your material life, which is carried in your adhyatma, in your subtle body, that is your karmic seeds, your bundle of karmas which you carry with you from birth to birth. And the actions you do here within this world that leave an emotional impression upon you as a result of connection with your ahankar or sense of self, all of them are karmic actions. Whereas those actions you perform within the world, not for your ahankar, not for your sense of self, not for your subtle part of your prakriti, not as a manifestation of your karma, but those activities which you perform as a sacrifice to God, they free you from karma. Yagnartharth karmano nyatra loko yam karma bandhana tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sanga samacharaha. All actions performed as a sacrifice to God, they thus are free from karma. Whereas those all other actions bind you to karma.
Namaste, Shantnuji. Thank you so much for today's session on the Bhagavad-Gita. My question is, how can the idea of reincarnation influence our daily life and moral choices, according to the Gita?
Your question is?
How can the idea of reincarnation uh, influence one's daily life and moral choices, according to the Gita?
Well, first of all, it should make you fearless because you are without any extinction of your being. Because you should be fearless, and most people live under the shadow of death. But you should understand that you are deathless. So that should make you abhayam. That should make you deathless and fearless. The second thing is that you should understand that many of the things you do in this world are the result of your behavior in the past. So your past life has determined your present life. Just as your present life is determining your next life. So learn to become an observer rather than an active participant. Because you should understand that whatever happens in your life is the result of the Prakriti that you're carrying from the previous life to this life. Don't try to find out your past life. I know there are so many people who try to get into past life regression and all that. But that is all rubbish because this was attempted a long time back and it was disproven Because past life regression usually means that you recall whatever is there in your mind. It may be a book you've read, a movie you've seen in childhood, or something you heard when you were young. It does not tell you the previous life. You see, at the time of leaving the body, it is so traumatic that you lose your memory of the previous life. Even those rare cases where children remember their past lives, by the age of 5, 6, they forget their previous life. So don't try to find it out. God intentionally wants you to take one life at a time. But live this life in a manner that you think good thoughts, do good deeds, and aspire to do them all in the spirit of sacrifice for Bhagavan, Krishna. And good thoughts, good words, good deeds, not in the sense of goodness itself, but in the spirit of sacrifice to please Krishna. That will help you to determine where you're going next. And make it a point to do everything for Him, so that by remembering God and forgetting self, it should become a habit. So that finally at the time of leaving this body, by remembering God and forgetting self, you will become free from transmigration.
Thank you, Shantanu ji, for such a wonderful explanation to the idea of karma and death. For all our viewers, if you loved this session, then do join us on next Thursday at 8 a.m. as Shantanu ji explains yet another chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Namaste. Jai Shri Krishna.
Okay. Hari Om, Jai Shri Krishna, Hare Krishna.